Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys are having a great Monday night. Welcome on into The Real. I can see different lighting here in my studio now. I just added that, so make it a little more entertaining, I guess. I don't know, a little more electric in here, I guess. But no, welcome on into The Real. Like I said, if you're new here, please subscribe. Excuse me. I'd really appreciate that. And we're here. It's football season. We are here. The Hall of Fame game starts Thursday night. Or is Thursday night, rather. Training camp has started this week. I know the Browns had their first full day of pads today down in Greensboro, West Virginia, I believe it is. And so we're going to get into it tonight. My man, Mike Antonase, is going to join me. We're going to give our predictions for each NFL division. And how this is going to work is Mike's going to come up here and give his ceiling and floor for each team. So, for instance, let's say the Eagles, or let's say the Browns, for instance. He'll say the Browns, he thinks the floor for them is 8 wins or 7 wins, and then the ceiling's maybe like 13 wins or something like that. And then I'll come in and give what I think each team will finish as. So maybe the Browns will be, who knows where I'll have the Browns, maybe 10-6, maybe 12-4. I don't know. And so that's what we're going to do for each team, for each division. And so looking forward to that. We're also going to get into some Browns training camp news. Mike's going to come up here and share some of the stuff. He's been keeping an eye on it and look at all the stuff every day and stuff and all that good stuff. And so we'll get into that. And but joining me now, the man, the myth, the legend. It is officially football season. Mike,
it's football season, ladies and gents.
It's football season, Mike. Are you excited, Mike?
I couldn't be more excited. Hall of Fame game this week. Get to see Caleb Williams, the best quarterback in this draft, play some foosball. It's going to be great. And the Texans,
how has
I'm sure.
Caleb looked?
He has looked generational, honestly. I've been keeping up with Bears training camp very closely. His teammates seem to love him. He's got really good command of the offense. He's making spectacular throws and it's training camp. It's early, it might not be the way in the season, but as far as just training camp is considered, Caleb Williams looks as advertised.
Brandon Owensby said, "How's the weather, Mike?"
It's nice in my house. I've been my AC. I actually just got serviced, so it's
watch till.
My God,
he's not gonna let you live it down. My grandma's in the house. Love you, Grandma. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, please. That's right.
You heard Grandma Labman. You hit that subscribe button.
Right. Hit the subscribe button now. But but Mike, how excited are you? It's officially football season. Week 1 of preseason technically is this week is the Hall of Fame game.
Yep. Thursday.
I'm looking forward to that. So we got the Texans and the Bears. Like you said, Caleb Williams.
You should see Caleb Williams. You should see
who are we gonna see in that game?
You should see Roma Dunze is another guy to watch. I don't know how many other season starters are going to start. And as far as the Texans are concerned, I mean, I don't know how many of the Texans starters are going to throw out there.
Is Stroud even going to see the field?
Probably not, especially because somebody hit him in training camp and he limped off the field when they weren't supposed to, wearing the red jersey. So yeah, that's a big no.
So probably not going to see. Who is their backup quarterback for the Texans?
That's a great question. Is it still Case Keenum? I think it's still Case Keenum. I think it is Case Keenum.
It might be Case Keenum. Let me look it up real quick. But I am looking forward to it. It's always a great night. Obviously, Mike and I live here in Northeast Ohio. One of our colleagues on the show, Dan Malott, he's Mr. Canton. I'm sure it's a big weekend for Canton. Obviously, it's the biggest weekend of the year. So, uh, but it's always a great time down there. I went to the Hall of Fame ceremony in 2014, and I sat down on the floor, and it's still to this day one of the best experiences I ever went to in my life. I mean, just unbelievable. All the guys there. I
Mhm.
mean, I saw
Oh
Joe
yeah, the
Burrow
Football
in
Hall of Fame
the
is
past. I
awesome.
mean, Deion Sanders was there. I mean, everybody was there. NFL Network. I mean, it was all these guys in one place. It was unbelievable to see everybody there in one place. And but yeah, they have, let's see, Case Keenum, Davis Mills, and Tim Boyle are the backups.
So Case Keenum,
Yeah, and probably Davis Mills. We'll see a little Davis Mills action.
the human giraffe, Davis Mills,
Yeah,
Mr. Long Neck himself.
but Mike, we're gonna get into what we're here today for. You're gonna get the ceiling and floor for each team. Do you want to break down how you came across these rankings and stuff, or these predictions rather, before you share them with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So I basically I went through um, each team, what they've added through the draft, what they've added through free agency, what they've lost in free agency, what they've added, maybe even coaching, and also just kind of where they are as a team altogether. Like obviously, you could have a team like the Commanders, right? That had, I think, a pretty good draft and a pretty good free agency. Does that mean I think they're going to win 10 games? No, they're not there yet. But do I think that they had a good draft and free agency and they might do a little bit better, at least surprise some people? Sure. It's going to be a lot of that. Obviously, it's going to be continuity based, all that good stuff. So,
Well, you ready to get into it, Mike?
yepers.
Let's do it. All right, so we're gonna start in the NFC first. We're gonna start in the NFC East. So, Mike, you want to break down here your ceiling and floor for the NFC East?
Absolutely. And I'll start with the team that I just mentioned, the Washington Manders, them hogs. So with the Commanders, they had a pretty decent free agency. Added Bobby Wagner amongst other defensive pieces. Offensively, obviously, you draft Jaden Daniels as your pretty huge pickup. I don't know if they're planning on starting him week 1, but it's a new day in Washington. They hired Dan Quinn as their new head coach. I think their floor is three wins. You know, I don't know how quick it's going to work with Jaden Daniels, but I like their pass catching options, especially having Terry McLaurin out there. And as far as, I think if you win 7 games and you're a Commanders fan, you're happy.
Yeah, I'd say so.
yeah. I think that's a great right season. It's just, if you want to see what you got out of Jaden, right? That's right. What this is all about. Now, on to New York. We've learned a lot about New York. I don't know if you've been watching the off-season Hard Knocks.
I saw some highlights. I saw where they were talking about trade for Brian Burns and talking about the Saquon thing that went viral.
Yeah,
that's
it was
not
super.
all I've seen.
It's super interesting. Kind viewers, if you haven't checked it out, I do recommend it. It's a really interesting peek behind the curtain. But I have their floor as 5 wins and their ceiling as 8. I do not like this New York team. And truth be told, I don't like Daniel Jones. I think New York fans are on the cusp of, hating Daniel Jones at this point.
We can run him out of town.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, they've added a bunch of new weapons. They obviously drafted Malik Neighbors, and they also replaced Xavier McKinney with drafting Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota, who I thought was the best safety. But I don't know if he's going to be Xavier McKinney good by any means. And also, they signed Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley. Again, I think Devin Singletary is a productive back. I don't think he's nearly as good as Saquon Barkley. But also drafted Theo Johnson, who is one of my favorite tight ends coming out of Penn.
Yeah, Penn State.
I think this is the year where they kind of see what they get out of Daniel Jones. I think that New York fans are going to be disappointed, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, Giants fans. This might be the last year for Danny Dimes. I highly suspect if he doesn't get it done, which I fully suspect he won't, to be cut and them to look to draft another quarterback here in the near future.
All right.
Cowboys. Oh no,
Cowboys, them
wait,
boys,
them
Dallas.
Dallas,
Yeah.
them boys. I got their floor at 8 wins. I think Dallas is a weird team, but they really do well at during the regular season. I got their ceiling as 12. They've been kind of trying to rebuild their offensive line the past couple years. They just drafted Tyler Guyton. I believe he was a Sooner out of Oklahoma. And then, just steadily adding pieces. It looks like they are zeroing in on a contract for Senior CeeDee Lamb, who's a top 5 receiver in my mind. Don't know what they're going to do about Dak. I don't know what the team's going to do overall. I still think they win this division, honestly, but I think it's going to be the same old song and dance with the Cowboys, and they just kind of flare off in the peas.
Yeah. The Philadelphia Eagles, Mike, with my boy Paris Campbell over there now, who caught a touchdown pass today from Jalen Hurts. Shot
Big
there.
Paris.
Healthy now, ready to roll. But what do you got for the Eagles?
Floor 7, and the reason why I have it so low is kind of last year you kind of saw maybe how much Shane Steichen really meant to this offense and this run game. Like I really, they added they had an insane free agency and they had an insane draft as they usually do, right? They, in my mind, I think they got the best player in the entire draft at corner in Quinyon Mitchell. And then they also got Cooper DeJean, and then they're being their 2 main picks. And then they also added, obviously, Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff. And I like Bryce Huff a lot, but he's probably going to be a little bit more rotational. I see their ceiling being 11 wins and like a really good deep playoff team if they can get the offense figured out. But you could really see how much the offense struggled after Shane Steichen left to take that head coaching job in Indy. I think it was really a scheme thing, and they just couldn't figure it out last year.
So I got for my predictions, I have the Eagles winning the division, Mike, at 12-5, and you just hit on them with Shane Steichen, and I agree. I think a lot of it might have been schematic stuff last year, but I think they bounced back this year. I think their head coach figures it out. I like their head coach. I think he's a good coach. What's his name? Slipping my mind.
Oh, Sirianni?
Yeah, Sirianni. I think Sirianni gets them to bounce back. They had some good depth on that side. But I think their biggest issue last year was the secondary. They figured that out. I think at the draft, they signed some guys. I think they'll be good back there. I think they'll get back to playing the Eagles that we know from 2 years ago, that style of football. And I think they're the best team in the division roster-wise. I got the Cowboys at 9-8. I looked at their schedule. I had some games in there. I just couldn't really pick them to win. I thought the Eagles had kind of an easier schedule in terms of like home games and away games. And so I got the Cowboys at 9-8, which is kind of interesting because if they go 9-8, I mean, Mike McCarthy may get fired after next season. It's up to see. The Giants, the back end of their schedule, when I did this, we did this like a month ago, our predictions, like around July 4th, we did this, but we wanted to save it till now. But when I look back then, I think their schedule, the back end, they had some easy wins. I think they get I think at the end of the year, they have good enough players. I think they just kind of win some games. 7-10, which I think is a decent year for them, I guess. But like you said, they got to make a decision on Daniel Jones I know they paid him, but what direction they want to go. I think Daniel could be solid this year. I think he'd be good enough where you can roll with him going forward. I just think they got some other holes they got to fill out on the roster. Obviously, just lost Saquon, so I got them there, and I got the Commanders at 5-12. But no panic though. I think Jane Daniels is going to he'll have a good year, especially in the second half. And if he does struggle, I wouldn't panic. I think it's a rebuild. It's going to take probably 2 to 3 years for them to get up to speed with Jaden Daniels and putting pieces around him. But I like some of the pieces they have now. I think they got to get better receiver. Outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't really have many other weapons that I could think of. I mean, they got good running back and Antonio Gibson, but and who's the other running back who came back for after he got that incident?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson, they got him.
And Bama.
Yeah, Brian Robinson, that's a good piece. I think him and Jane Daniels in the backfield together would be really good. They got some defensive piece, but I think they're probably 2 years away. They got a new head coach now, which I like their new head coach. But I think 5-12 is reasonable for them. So that's my predictions for the NFC East, Mike. I got the Eagles winning it. So now we're going to move on to the NFC West. You want to break down your NFC West here?
Absolutely. And we'll start in the bottom right corner with the Arizona Cardinals. I have their floor at 3 wins and their ceiling at 8. I liked their draft, and I think that they're rebuilding really, really well. I actually like their coach, and I'm not a Kyler Murray hater. Every time Kyler's been out there,
I like their coach, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is not a bad pick. We'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like what the Cardinals are doing to rebuild their team. I just think they need so much. The only reason I gave their ceiling so high as 8 wins is because the NFC is generally a weaker conference, so I wouldn't be surprised if they surprised some people and did that. However, at the same token, I could also see them only winning 3 games. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Seattle, I have their floor at 5, ceiling at 10. I'm really, really curious to see how Michael Mayer does as a head coach. I thought he was one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL last season. He was a huge part about the Ravens run. So I'm excited to see what they do. Biggest question mark, I think it's obvious, is quarterback. Geno Smith kind of came back to reality last year a little bit. I like the weapons they have. Kenneth Walker, when he's healthy, is a great back. Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf are great pass catching options. They still have Noah Fant that they got in a trade from Denver, who's a very talented tight end. They got some really good pieces, and they picked up Draymond Jones last year. They were a little bit more quiet this year in free agency, but I'm hoping with the head coaching hire, I could see them just because change of schemes and everything, and surprising some teams, them going 10 wins. But if Geno doesn't play very well, it probably won't go well.
Yeah. What you got for the LA Rams, Mike?
The Rams are a weird team. They're weird because this is a team that I could see making a run for the NFC Championship. It's also a team that I could see missing the playoffs entirely, which is why I have their ceiling and floor like that. And the reason being is I think their offensive weapons are great. Kyron Williams really came on as a really impressive running back. Their draft, was pretty good, but at the same token, it's really just how healthy is Matt Stafford going to be? Matt Stafford's not a spring chicken by any means. And, he missed a lot of time last year. Will he miss some time this year? And he's not a mobile quarterback. I hate to say this, Aaron Rodgers is sort of mobile, at least. Matt Stafford's a statue back there. So really all depends on what they get out of Matt. Hall of Fame arm. Yeah, absolutely. It really depends on what they get out of him. And lastly, of course, San Francisco. Really enjoyed their draft. Loved the Ricky Pearsall pick, even though I think it was a little high. When you're drafting that low in the first round, you can kind of just, shoot a little bit higher for players that are maybe second round talents. But Ricky Pearsall is really impressive. And, this team, I don't really see a ton of teams in the NFC being able to contend the way that the Niners do, personnel-wise, coaching-wise. I think it pretty much explains itself. And again, they were kind of quiet in free agency this year, but last year they still added Javon Hargrave to their already impressive defensive line. I could see them, again, winning the NFC Championship and going back to the Super Bowl. But
I got for my NFC West, Mike, I got the 49ers winning division at 13-4. 13 wins may seem like a lot, but they won, I think, 13, 14 wins last year. So, it's pretty much the same roster. I think not really much turnover at all. I think this is their 1 year. I don't know how many years they have left because Trent Williams is getting older. You got the stuff going on with Brandon Ayuk. They're paying a lot of money. I think this is the last year they got to really go for it. They've been really close. Now, I do think there's a path where they could go down. Like you had your at 10 wins. I think there's a path for that where their floor is 10 wins. If stuff maybe gets a little too goes south, maybe Brock Purdy doesn't look that good.
As good as if they get riddled with injuries, because
injuries.
They got their players are really injury prone. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, all those guys have missed time at some point.
Yeah.
So
injuries, but I think there's I think this is their one last year with this whole group to really make a run. I think they go all in. They got the culture, the coach, and here the coach has to play. He has to get them over the hump finally. McDaniels, he needs to get them over the hump, and so I think this is the year they go 13-4, maybe make it back to the bowl again, or at least to the conference championship game again. I got the Rams at 11-6, Mike. I'm really high on the Rams. I think this is Stafford's one last run this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many more years he has left because of his health, but I think him and McVay have one more year in him. I think they did a nice job regrouping the weapons, Puka Nakua. They drafted Jared Verse in the D line. I know they lost Aaron Donald, but Jared Verse is a really nice selection. They've always had pretty nice defense out there, and so I like the Rams a lot. I think 11-6. I think they're a pretty dangerous team. Actually, I think just with a healthy Stafford, I think they could beat anybody any day in that conference. I think just with the weapons they have, and I think if he's healthy, I think they got one last run in them. I got the Seahawks at 7-10, which is I think it's actually a good year for them considering they lost the legendary Pete Carroll. Mike McDonald's first year, Geno Smith. They got some good weapons, like you said. They got offensively, they got two young studs and JSN and obviously they got DK, but JSN and Kenneth Walker. I like those two a lot. The running back and the receiver combo with DK Metcalf. But I think 7-10. Like I said, I think that's a good year for them. I think they're still on the uprise. I think they'll regroup in the offseason and maybe back to the playoffs the year after. Who knows? Depends how well the coach does. But the Cardinals, I got at 6-11.
That'd be a great year for them.
I think the Cardinals 6-11. I mean, Kyler. The biggest thing with him is health, his size. But I mean, 6-11 is not terrible. You look at the rest of their roster; they got a ton of draft picks, and they brought in a ton of draft picks. I think they had the most draft picks anybody in this draft, previous draft. So they're a pretty young team. I think they're still got some time to go. I like their coach as well. I think he's a really good coach from the Cleveland area as well. But yeah, I think 6-11. Kyler just kind of gets his rhythm back this year. Hopefully stays healthy for at least 14 games. I think would be good for him.
Yeah.
So, and I think obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. You want to look like a borderline Pro Bowler. I think he could do it. He's that talented.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I mean he should be up in that conversation, and that's perfect for them. I think they could regroup again. Maybe make some trades in the offseason. I mean, Arizona is kind of a destination for some guys. It's a nice place to live, nice weather. So, yeah. That's my predictions for the South, Mike. Moving on to the NFC North now. Gert's Detroit Lions.
Alrighty. I'm actually going to start at the bottom right because that's what I've been doing. Keep up with it.
Yeah.
Green Bay Packers. I have their floor as 6 wins and their ceiling at 10. They kind of were a little bit more impressive than I thought they were going to be last year. I think Jordan Love had a fantastic inaugural year, considering. Now, that being said, they did add some really big pieces in free agency. They added Josh Jacobs after losing Aaron Jones, and they added Xavier McKinney, the star safety from New York. And they were really struggling on their defensive backfield. And all Green Bay fans everywhere cheered when Joe Barry was finally fired. He was a level of hatred as Joe Woods. Yeah, like war criminal back there. Yeah. So I do think that it is very possible that they could win 10 games and go on a playoff run again. However, I could also see it not working out. Like, the only reason I could see it not working out is they are still an incredibly young team. Mm-hmm. The oldest player I think on the team at this point is it might actually just be Josh Jacobs on the offense, really. Defensively, I think it's Kenny Clark. But we'll see what the new defensive coordinator's got, if he can actually turn this Green Bay defense around, which they really need to, considering how much draft capital they've spent on their defense the past 3 years. I think they could be a team to be reckoned with. Minnesota. Oof.
I know you're not the biggest JJ McCarthy.
I am a certified JJ McCarthy hater. Certified. I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback. I really don't. He hasn't looked good in camp. I know it's just camp. It's early. I could be wrong. He could be the next Patrick Mahomes. Who knows? But I don't think so. I have their floor at 4 wins. I have their ceiling at 6. And I think if they win 6 games, it's I think it's going to be one of those things where Sam Darnold starts the season and then halfway through the season they bench Sam Darnold for JJ. JJ goes out there and just sucks. It's going to be like when the Browns would draft a young player, a young quarterback. Shit would go awry with whatever backup we were running out there, and then we would be like, "Oh, it's time for the rookie to step it up," and he just goes out there and just sucks. And it just takes all the life out of you. That being said, I really like the Dallas Turner pick. I think he was the best defensive end in the draft. I like Ryan Flores still as their defensive coordinator. I think that'll be a lot of fun. They paid Justin Jefferson, and honestly, I think between every team in their division, maybe with the exception of the Bears, they have the best. Well, you know what? They have the best wide receiver duo, not trio, but they have the best wide receiver duo in the division. So that might hide some of JJ McCarthy's obvious flaws, but who knows?
Well, I know. Hopefully, Jordan Addison keeps some stuff out of trouble. But,
yeah. It looks like he is. It looks like he learned from his mistakes.
I hope he's a great talent. Your boy,
the Bears. The Bears, Chicago, very active in free agency, very active in the draft. They added in free agency DeAndre Swift. They added Keenan Allen. They're just freaking picking up dudes everywhere. Obviously, in the middle of
last season. Good year last year, kind of.
After they added Montez Sweat, yeah. I really like the Bears. I think their ceiling can be 10 wins if Caleb does really well, and I really think I think they're talented everywhere. Offensively, I think they have the best wide receiver trio. Even if Roman Dunze ends up just being a good second option, he's still your wide receiver 3, and your duo is Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Pretty damn good. And then you have DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield. Their offensive line is, for the most part, fixed. Darnell Wright last year in the draft was super, super smart. That kid is great at tackle. And if they can figure this out, if they can drive this Ferrari like a Ferrari, if you will, I could see them easily making a playoff run. I could see them being second in the division. They could be first in the division if it wasn't for this team. The Detroit Lions.
Gergs' Lions.
I got them at their floor at 8, but their ceiling at 13, and I really think there's a path for them for the 1 seed in the whole of the NFC. The only reason I can see that being derailed is if their defensive pickups don't work out, or if there's some catastrophic injuries, particularly at quarterback. Luckily, I don't think that it'll happen because Detroit really relies on the run to set up the pass, kind of like the classic Kevin Stefanski playbook. And also defensively, they drafted every corner in the draft. I think they had 3 straight picks that were DBs. So, with last year with the emergence of Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, I really think that this team can continue to elevate. I really think there's a path for them to win 13 games, and the only way it doesn't work out is if somehow the defensive additions don't help, because their DBs last year were bad. They were bad.
Well, I got the Bears winning division, the Lions winning division, Mike. Oh, well, that almost shocks people there. Excuse me. I got the Lions winning division, Mike, 12-5. I think they keep the train rolling. Dan Campbell's got a culture there. He's got a great foundation. They just extended Goff. They added some guys in the secondary through the draft. I think the Lions keep it rolling. Detroit's really done a nice job building through the draft and just doing it the right way. They got a great program over there. I think they 12-5, which I think I would have them second in the whole NFC behind the Niners. So I got them there. I got the Packers, Mike, 11-6. I'm really high on Jordan Love. I think they come back this year and keep the momentum going. I think 11-6 is a really good year for them. I think they kind of challenge the Lions throughout the year. I think it could, and I could see in the middle of the season where maybe at one point the Packers are ahead in the first place by a game, and then the Lions come back and take the lead and win the division. But I think the Packers are going to be their challenger. I think they're Really good team. I think they're well balanced. I think I like what their Flores is doing with Jordan Love. Like you said, they added Josh Jacobs, who I think is a phenomenal running back. I like what they're doing a lot over there. Christian Watson, the wide receiver over there as well, younger guy, really came alive towards the end of the season. The Bears, I got them at 7-10. I think the Bears could have the. Remember Baker Mayfield's rookie season where they was it like 7-8-1 or 8-7-1? I think it
Yeah.
was. Or I think Caleb. I think they kind of get off to a rocky start. But I think at the middle of the season they start to maybe Caleb starts to settle down. I think as long as Caleb listens to like what Jalen Johnson said, their corner before they drafted him, just come in here and be a rookie, and learn and you're gonna take your bumps and bruises, but learn and be a sponge and be a team player.
Yeah,
As long as he does that, I think I could see them towards the end of the year, getting hot, winning a couple games, maybe surprising some teams. 7-10, which is a really good year for them, I think, for Caleb. And then if he looks great, how everybody says he is, and then you look at the other pieces they added, and then going into the next offseason, excuse me, I think they can really make a jump the year after. You might have a 3-team race in this division for the next 3 to 5 years. Who knows? I got the Minnesota Vikings at 6-11. I could have went lower on that, but I gave them 6 wins. I mean, I like JJ McCarthy. I think he could be a solid player in the NFL. I think he's in the right system there in Minnesota. It's kind of similar to what they ran somewhat in Michigan with the play action, a little more of the run heavy scheme. But I think it's going to take him time. I'm curious how he matches with Jordan Jefferson. Jordan Jefferson's going to have some patience with him and Addison because he is a rookie. And so I think 6-11, I think that seems reasonable for them. I think that's where they finish. I think they're kind of probably 3 years away from really making some noise. Maybe 2. I don't know. Depends what they do. But yeah, or Justin Jefferson. Excuse me. I said Jordan Jefferson. I'm curious. I'm going to be watching to see how Jefferson's chemistry with McCarthy is. That's what I'm going to be watching. So that's all I got for the North, Mike. I got the Lions winning it. But moving on now, Mike. This is where maybe things can get a little controversial. Obviously, our buddy Dan's a Bucs fan, so we'll start with the Falcons, Mike. The NFC South.
Yeah, I think the Falcons, at least in that division, had the best offseason, at least as free agency goes, because I friggin' hated their draft. But added Kirk Cousins, added Darnell Mooney. Obviously they got the quarterback figured out. They added Raheem Morris as their head coach, got rid of Arthur Smith. I think Darnell Mooney is a great wide receiver too. I could see them easily winning 11 games and sweeping this division with the team they have. Because really all they need to do is use the weapons they have, which Arthur Smith just somehow didn't want to do. You have Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts. Like, there's no reason this team shouldn't be successful or at least win the division. I don't love their defense. I especially don't love that they traded up for Rook or Rororo, who I like coming out of Clemson, but he's not
that pick either.
Huh?
Corey didn't like.
Oh yeah, I know he didn't. And Corey didn't even know about him. I knew about him. Rook Rororo is going to be a great nose tackle, classic, just run stuffer, but that's what he is. I don't know if it was worth trading up into like a high second round pick for him, but here, maybe it works out. And obviously there was the controversial Michael Penix pick. I wasn't a fan of it, not because I don't understand what the Falcons were trying to do. That their thought process was, we're not going to be drafting this high. At least we don't expect to anymore. And we want to get our future secured. I get that, but Michael Penix never struck me as a first-round quarterback. So that's what I got for them. I could see it going both ways. The Carolina Panthers. I actually liked their offseason, and I actually liked their draft a lot. They traded back up into the first round to get Xavier Legette, and they traded for Deontay Johnson, who is the best receiver on the Steelers. And they drafted Jonathan Brooks, who is out of Texas, who is probably the best running back in this year's draft. Getting Bryce Young some more weapons, and then they hire Dave Canales, out of he was offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. To better scheme for him. So I think if they win 7 games, or if they even win a couple, I think as long as they see some like positive movement for Bryce Young, I think you're happy as a Carolina fan.
Yeah, that's all you're hoping this year. He looks like a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. That there's hope, right?
Right. What do you got for the Saints, Mike?
Saints are a weird team, right? I kind of like their team. They're one of those teams though that's always perennially hurt. Defensively, they have a good scheme. They've drafted good players. Offensively, they've got good players. I mean, Alvin Kamara. I don't hate Derek Carr as a quarterback. They got Chris Olave. Like, I like their weapons. I like their team overall, but like, it's one of those things. Can Derek Carr figure it out? Can the team coaching staff figure it out? Is Dennis Allen the right guy for the job as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints? Will the team stay healthy? There's just a lot that could go right or a lot that could go wrong with this team, and I think Saints fans will tell you the same thing.
Dan's Buccaneers.
Yeah. Look, I think they really overachieved last year. I think it's going to be the classic Baker Mayfield like shenanigans. I think Dave Canales had a lot to do with Baker Mayfield's success last year. I still think they could win 9 games, and I still think that might even win this division because it's the NFC South. But I could see it all crumbling apart like we're all used to as Browns fans. I will say the weapons Baker has, very good. I like their defense a lot. And I think if their defense can carry them kind of like they did in the back half of last season, they're still going to be a very competitive team and a fun team to watch. It really depends on what kind of Baker Mayfield they get. Maybe Baker's figured it out and they continue to be a really competitive team, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm going to get into mine. So I got the Falcons winning division, Mike, at 10-7. I was gonna put them at 11, but I feel like they were a 7-win team last year. I feel like 4 wins is too much of a jump. I think 10's good enough for them to win this division. Obviously, I got the New Orleans Saints, Mike, at 9-8 at second place. I think the Saints. You look at them the last 2 years; they've been trending up, and like you said, they have a lot of good pieces like Olave. They got some other pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Even if Derek Carr struggles early, I think there's always a quarterback every year, a rookie quarterback who comes out of nowhere, who was maybe late round pick, mid round, pick, who plays well. And I think Spencer Rattler, if he gets in, I think can play well. I think in the dome, I think with the weapons they have, the comfort he'll have, I think if he gets in the middle of the season, if Derek Carr doesn't play like Derek Carr, plays well when he's on, I think Spencer Rattler can lead them and get hot. There's always that team every year. I think they can be that team.
He was the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl. I remember we were talking about that. He was the most impressive quarterback at the Senior Bowl. So, and Bo Nix was there. And Spencer Rattler outplayed him. So.
Yeah, I think he gets in this year. I don't know if Derek Carr works out, but I think if Rattler gets in, one of the two. Carr plays well, great, but I think Rattler gets in. I think there's always that guy every year, that one rookie quarterback that just leads his team to like 9 wins, borderline playoff. I think he's it. So, it could be it. I got the Bucks at 8-9, Mike. It was a coin flip between them and the Saints. I gave the Saints a 9 because I like more of their pieces better overall, and I like their schedule better towards the back end of the year. Here, the Bucks. I like Todd Bowles a lot. I love Tampa Bay. Obviously, it's my second home. I like Todd Bowles. I think Todd Bowles doesn't get enough credit as a head coach. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I like a lot of defensive pieces, especially young guy Kalijah Kanes. I think it's going to be an animal in this league for a long time. You still got Mike Evans, who's, really, talk about consistency. It's Mike Evans. Their offensive line's good. They still got Warps. They still got Alex Kappa, I believe, too. Great center. And here, Baker played well last year, but like you said, I think Dave Canales had a lot to do with that. And we've seen Baker transition from another OC before to another one, and it's not even his fault. It's like he finally found the guy that fit him well in the NFL, and then he leaves because he got a head coaching job. So it's like you thought he had the consistency he finally needed, and then the guy leaves. So I'm curious. That's my hesitancy with him because I don't know how Baker's going to look. Is he going to look as good as he looked last year, or is he got paid now? He doesn't need to worry for out of contract for a little bit. They got a new OC again. I mean, I just don't know how it looks. I think it could be 50-50 away it goes. I mean,
Yeah,
I got him at
same
eight
way.
nine just because I think there's some uncertainty there. The stability and offensively is not there like they had because of the OC moving, and you don't know what Baker's unpredictable his whole career. You just don't
Right.
know. So I got him there. I got the Panthers at 4-13. I mean, it's 3 wins better than last year. I think Bryce Young will look better this year. I think with Canals, what he did with Baker, I think he could do that with Bryce. Bryce is more talented. He's number one overall pick as well, but he was supposed to be that guy coming out. But I think they just got more holes on their roster they got to solve, and I think they're a rebuild. And so, but I think Bryce Young bounces back. But 4-13, like I said, they're a rebuild. They got to take some time to get there, but I do like their coach. And I do think I haven't given up on Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young could still be
Yeah.
effective in this league. So
Hopefully, David Tepper lets the coach do what a coach is supposed to do and build the
yeah,
team up.
so that's our NFC predictions. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go a little faster. We'll go through the AFC real quick. And so stay tuned. We'll be back in a second.
Um, because when people put labels on you, so, sometimes people believe them. After a lot of constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you know, you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever.
I
Sometimes you
think this is
believe them.
important. I wrote this down right here because this is key for people our age, especially somebody like me who's 23, single. Is not to don't wear the labels the world might say you are. And so people could tell me in my life, some of the things I in my personal life, obviously because we're good friends, but certain things maybe I haven't achieved yet because of what happened to me, just because of circumstances. But if I were to keep wearing that label of I don't have X, Y, and Z yet, or you know, if I would go by the world standards and the pressure, and sometimes even your own family, and he even said in the sermon earlier, he said sometimes the wisest thing for you to do, nobody will agree with you, literally nobody, and that could be your own, it could be everybody around you. But as long as you listen to the voice and you can feel that conviction, what why should you be afraid? Why not? What's there to be? What I mean? What that should be give you somewhat of a confidence, and it's hard to do because when everybody around you is telling you what to do, you can start to wear the like I could have started to wear those labels and started to you know. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, though. I can tell you that I'd be in a deep, deep hole. So I guess kind of what we talked about this in our last episode we did too. Back I think it was like in October
Yeah.
about being bold and courageous, and because that's really what it is. I think surrendering it takes a leap of courage, of faith, and so I guess kind of what are the things that have helped you in your past, or what some words of encouragement people out there, especially our age, watching about you know uh, being bold and courageous, and not wearing your past, not wearing the labels and all that.
Um, it's something that's it's easier said than done, but you definitely have to try to
Mm.
surrender it all to God. Giving it to Him, laying at the foot of the cross, and just trusting Him through it all. Um, because when people put labels on you, so, sometimes people believe them. After a lot of constantly people saying, "Oh, you're this, you're that," you know, you'll never do this, you'll never be like that, whatever. Sometimes you believe them. After hearing it enough, and then
Mm.
um, at the end of the day, it's just lies. But you have to trust that you know Christ is going to set you free, as He said He will. You just got to take the first step and surrender it to Him first before He takes it, because He's not
Right.
going to do it forcefully. He's going to do it. He wants you to take the first leap of faith.
All right, welcome back. Time
We
to
are
move
back.
on. My time to move on to the AFC. By
The
the way, Mike,
best conference.
the Guardians made a trade for uh, Thomas. What's his name?
Lane
Lane
Thomas.
Thomas, outfielder for 3 prospects.
It's amazing that we made a trade. Go buy a lottery ticket, Guardians fans.
Yeah, shit. Well, yeah. But time to move on to the AFC, Mike. We'll go through this a little quicker here.
All right.
We'll start in the AFC East, Mike. I know you're part of the AFC East podcast as well. Sometimes your boys over there. Shout out to them.
Shout
AFC
out
East
to
Roundtable.
AFC East Roundtable. Yeah. My
But,
boy
what do
Dan
you-
Mitchell.
Yeah, shout out to Dan. What do you got here, Mike, for the AFC East?
Pats, I got him floor being 2, ceiling being 6. I shouldn't really have to go into deep explanation of this. You got a first-year head coach in Gerard Mayo. I like their draft. I like Drake May a lot, but they are rebuilding. Hard rebuild, reset. That's where they're at. And, I don't think anybody will have any arguments about that. Drake May looks good in camp so far. I like Jalen Polk, too, in the second round. I think he was a really, really good receiver. I just think, it's going to take some time for them to be competitive again. Dolphins, I really... This is one of those teams that I don't really believe in as much as I did. Last year, I really do think they gave you their best punch. And they've lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball. They lost Christian Wilkins. They lost Xavier Howard, excuse me. And their other defensive ends, while they're great, I like Jalen Phillips. I like Bradley Chubb.
Yeah.
But they're never healthy. And offensively, they're the 76ers of the NFL. They're going to play really well.
Jerome Baker, too, linebacker.
Yeah, and they lost Jerome Baker. They lost a lot of defensive pieces. I think they're still going to be competitive because Tyreek Hill is the best non-quarterback in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball. I still hold that belief. But we'll see. Bills, I really think it's still going to be their division, but I could see it going not well if Josh Allen struggles with his new pass catching options, losing Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. But Gabe Davis really didn't have a great end of the last season, and Stephon Diggs, I try not to get into this player's a diva, this, that, and the other. But with Stephon Diggs, I think at this point there's been so much that you just really can't ignore it. I really don't think it's going to be that big of a jump from Keon Coleman to Stephon Diggs, just considering I think they have more versatility in their pass catching. I really like Dalton Kincaid, and James Cook really came alive last season. I think their biggest question is on defense. Like Von Miller wasn't healthy. He's old at this point. It's just like, what are you going to get out of AJ Epinesa and, Ed Oliver?
Right.
The Jets, I think, are my biggest swing in all of my ceiling to floors. And I don't think that's unusual. This team can either win the AFC East and make a deep playoff run or be awful. I don't think there's really a midline for them. I mean, their offensive line is still very suspect. I like their weapons. I like their quarterback. If, he can stay on the field. Their defense, honestly, it's right up there with the Browns as far as like defensive line talent, corner talent, safety talent, linebacker talent. They got guys everywhere on the defense. It's just a matter of, can the offense figure it out? Can they offensive line protect Rodgers? And can Nathaniel Hackett not just be a yes man and actually write up some damn plays? I don't know. They're the biggest question mark in the NFL, I think. I really do believe that. I don't
agree
know.
with that. I agree with that. And I'll go to mine now. I got them winning the division, though, because I feel like they have to. I mean, they went all in for Aaron Rodgers, right? They have to get it done. I think this is it for...
I think they could win the division. I don't think that's
their head coach.
Salah. Robert Salah.
This is it for him. I think this is it. He's on the hot seat to me. And so I got them winning division, though, 11-6. I don't like what Aaron Rodgers missed in minicamp, and I like Rodgers, but I don't like missing minicamp. I don't like what I saw the other day with Garrett Wilson, what he said to him. I don't think Garrett's wrong for what he said either about Rodgers that way. Well, maybe wrong, but I still think they win the division. I'm actually not as concerned with the O-line. I think they did a nice job in the draft and through trade. Joe Tittman, the center, rookie center
I
from
really like
Wisconsin, really good. Brady Latham from Arkansas is really good. Another guard they brought in. Olu Fashionow, they got him too. I see. I'm looking at their roster. From Penn State was really good. So they're young. They're young on the O-line, which could be a concern, but I think they'll figure it out. I think having a veteran quarterback like Rodgers help, and then they got Tyron Smith, who's been great at tackles. So I'm not as concerned about. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I like the situation for him. I think their O-line will actually be really good. I just, it's all about Rodgers and Salah to me, getting on the same page. It doesn't seem to be any friction there. They say everything's fine. I know Salah find them. But it's, can they just put it all together? Because they got all the pieces. I mean, they could make it all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. They have that. They're that talented. And so we'll see what happens. Like you said, they are the biggest question mark. Because I agree with you. It can go really good or it can go really bad. They're the one team that's where I see. And so, and like you said too with Nathaniel Hackett, although we know Rodgers is really down or not, but that's what it seems like. But I got them winning the division still. I think they get it together. 11-6. I got the Buffalo Bills at 9-8, Mike. Sorry to your boy Dan Mitchell, but I don't like their pass catchers. They've lost some guys. They lost Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, who were their top two guys. They got Dalton Kincaid, who's phenomenal. They still got Josh Allen. I think 9-8's still okay for them. I mean, they could probably still make the wild card right there. But I got them at 9-8, Mike. I think just above 500. I'm just not, and I think their head coach has got stuff. Sean McDermott, to me, I think needs to prove he can get the team over the hump. I think he's done a nice job, but I think he needs to get them to the next level now. You know, they've been kind of like teetering in the same spot for the last 3 years. So, I got them at 9-8. The Dolphins, I agree with you. I got them at 7-10. I think they'll win some games. They're in Miami, so they'll, steal a couple games in the warm weather. But I'm not. It's Miami. I think Miami's just that team. They can score a lot of points when they're on. They got Tyreek Hill. They added Odell Beckham Jr. They got Jalen Waddle. Tua, when healthy, okay, solid. But I'm just not as high in them. Their head coach is a great offensive mind, but as a head coach, I got question marks. I mean, if your head coach is standing out there on a sideline in a game, talking about how cold he is in the National Football League, in the sport of football, I got concerns. So, and like you said, they lost a lot on the defensive side as well. So they lost, their interior dog, Christian Wilkins, Jerome Baker from Cleveland, Ohio State guy, was a solid middle linebacker. Like I said, they lost some guys at corner as well. So I'm not as high on the Dolphins. I think 7-10 is being nice. And the Patriots are 4-13, but kind of what I said earlier about the Washington Commanders, don't panic. I think Drake May could end up being the best quarterback in this entire draft. I think Drake May to me reminds me a lot of what Justin Herbert was in his draft, where he was kind of like, he was high, but he was kind of not talked about as much as the other guys. If that makes sense. Remember Herbert was taken 9th. He was kind of under the radar a little bit. Like, you knew he was going to be great. He was going to be in the first round, but they were talking about the other guys instead above him. And, this class, it was Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy and Jaden Daniels. And Drake May would get thrown in there, because he was just, because he was good. He was going to take it that high. I think Drake May is going to do a really good job. I like him a lot. They got a lot to fill out in that roster, especially offensively with the weapons. Even their top guy last year, the receiver, they lost to the Raiders. So, they got some. They're going to take some time. It's going to take about 3-4 years. We'll see how their coach does. I'm forgetting the coach's name again. Mike. Gerard Mayo, former player. We'll see how he does his first year. Can he do what the coach Antonio Pierce did for the Raiders? I think that's the model for him. Kind of that in line with that type of coaching style as a former player. So we'll see what happens. But I like Drake May. 4-13 for them, which isn't a bad. It's not a bad thing. As long as Drake May looks good and comes out healthy, and then you just keep rebuilding each year of the draft, a couple more drafts, a couple more free agencies and trades. I think maybe they get up to the 8-9 win team. So we'll see. Moving on to the AFC West, Mike. What do you got for the Denver Broncos? Your first 0 on the board.
I hate this team. I hate everything about the
people in Denver hate him too, from what I've heard. But go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds that way. So Denver, I'm sorry, you have nothing. If you're a Denver Broncos fan, I apologize, but I don't think you have anything to look forward to at all. I I see this as a team that could win 0 games. It's the only team I have at a floor being none, winless. They're in a very competitive division. I know those ceilings and floors aren't looking too hot on my screen, but it's still a competitive division. I hated their draft so much. I thought picking Bo Nix that high was ridiculous. I don't hate Bo Nix by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, he was a late second, early third round guy. You know, this is a Hendon Hooker kind of guy, like someone that was pretty good in college, might be a starter at some point. Not saying they're the same prototype of player, because they're certainly not, but like that's the kind of caliber I see Bo Nix being. And Sean Payton has not worked. I don't know if Sean Payton knew what he was getting himself into when he allowed the trade to happen between the Saints and Denver, because now he's part of an extremely hard rebuild. You lose Jerry Jeudy. Your best player is Patrick Surtain now. Your second best player is still a free agent, Justin Simmons, the safety. You don't have a pass rush. You don't have linebackers. You have one good corner. Your best pass catcher has only caught 800 yards. It's just all bad. Everything about your team is bad, and it's going to take a very long time for it to work. Time for Vegas. Yeah, another pretty big swing, because I just don't know. I think roster-wise, they're excellent. Defensively, you have Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, who's, I think, on the same level as Myles Garrett and Michael Parsons. He's just that good of a pass rusher. I think I really like what they've been doing in the draft at DB and safety. Zamir White has kind of proven himself to be a pretty decent running back. You have Devontae Adams. You have, Brock Bowers now and Michael Mayer, two excellent tight ends. But at the end of the day, it's Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew throwing the ball. So they could shock some people and make a run, but I also could see them just not doing well because of the quarterback.
The Chargers with Jim
LA.
Harbaugh, Captain Khaki Pants.
Yeah, Khaki Harbaugh. This might surprise some people, because I know a lot of people nationally, at least it seems, are pretty high on the Chargers. I'm not. Not to say I think that Harbaugh isn't going to work, and not to say I'm not a fan of Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert's a top 5 quarterback, and I think Harbaugh will eventually work. But it has been a decade since he's coached in the NFL. I did like the draft that the Chargers had. I think Joe Alt was the best tackle in the draft. It's just they need a lot. They got rid of Austin Eckler. They got rid of basically all of their pass catchers. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are gone. I like Ladd McConkey. I just don't think it's going to work immediately. So I think they're in kind of a soft rebuild. And I think it's going to just take a little bit of time for that to work out.
The defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs.
The only reason I have their ceiling as high as I do is because Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. I like what they have in the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older. You've had a lot of drama. You don't know if Rashee Rice is going to be suspended. And if that happens, you're kind of right back where you started, with one rookie receiver and one vet who's very okay in Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. I don't know. I could see them falling off. But, I have their ceiling as high as I do, because never count out Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to, but I think worst case scenario, they go, they win 8 games.
All right. I got for the AFC West, I got the Kansas City Chiefs reclaiming it again at 12-5, Mike. I think this is their last, I don't say their last year, but I don't know how many years they got. Eventually a dynasty falls off.
Yeah.
I don't think Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere, but I think Kelsey's getting towards the end. Who knows with Andy Reid? I mean, you don't know. I mean, I think I think they'll be good again this year. I mean, you won't see him fall until they see him, or they won't fall until you see him fall. So until then, we'll be seeing for the last, 5, how many years now, whatever it's been, 5-6 years, that would be great. So I think 12-5, they win it. I'm higher on the Chargers. I think I got 11-6. I know that for Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL, I think he'll be just fine. I like Justin Herbert. I like their schedule too. in some of their games, but I like what they've done. I know they're a little younger on the perimeter, but I think the guy they drafted, who's the rookie receiver they got, he's looked really
McConkey.
good. McConkey's looked good, and they got another one, the guy from TCU the year before. He looked good in camp.
I've heard the opposite.
I saw some highlights. He looked pretty good.
Quentin Johnson, yeah.
I think he'll be better with the new coach, and I think everybody will be better with the new coach and Harbaugh being there. But I think J.K. Dobbins, from what I've seen in camp, I've been watching some of their mic'd ups and stuff, and just watched some of their highlights. I think J.K. rejuvenates his career in
I
LA.
hope so. I love J.K. Dobbins.
I think J.K. really becomes the dude this year. I think he looks solid this year. I think he has a great year, which will really help them go a long way. They still got some guys defensively. Obviously, you got Joey Bosa, you got Derwin James, you still got all these guys.
Khalil Mack.
Who's the corner they got as well? Is really good. Who's
corner?
Their corner?
I mean, they got Derwin James as a safety, but their corners are a little weak.
Who was their one corner? Let me look it up real quick. Maybe I'm thinking of Derwin. I know Derwin's safety. Right, you're right. So, at corner, didn't they draft somebody? If I'm not mistaken. Asante Samuel Jr.
Yeah,
he's Asante Samuel. I like Asante. I think he's solid. But I think they're solid. A solid team. I think 11-6. I think they can get there. I think they get hot at the end of the year. I think with Justin Herbert, I think when he's on, can be a top 5 quarterback in the league. He's that good. But I think with him, and I think Dobbins will be the catalyst for that team. Jim Harbaugh's teams like to play physical, run the ball. They got a really good offensive line led by Slater. I like that team a lot. I think, like I said, I think some of their younger receivers, Lab McConkey and the dude from TCU, I think he gets better. I think 11-6. The Raiders at 9-8. The reason why I put them at 9-8 because I think their talent-wise and how they looked at the end of last year with Antonio Pierce, McConnell was okay. He was good enough. I think they can win 9 games. Now, I did this on July 4th. And some of the stuff I've heard since then, do I think they'll win 9 games? No, I think they don't. I don't think they want to win 9 games, and I think they try to go all in for Shedeur Sanders. I think, I just think eventually it's Vegas. I think talent wise, like you said, I think their weapons are phenomenal. You got Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. You got Devontae Adams, Trey Tucker, my man from my former teammate in high school, who I think is going to be really good this year in the slot. They brought in Jacoby Myers from New England, who's their top guy, solid third option, third option, whatever. They got weapons. They got a hammer running back. And so I like their pieces. Obviously, you got Max Crosby, who's arguably the best defensive player in the league. I mean, he's high motor. Watching Matt Crosby play football is awesome because he just never takes a play off. He just plays at such a high level. But I think I think Davis eventually wants to get a big name at quarterback because, like you said, McConnell and Gardner Minshew, I just don't see that long term working. Obviously, you need to get a guy there, and you're Vegas. They need to sell tickets. I think Shedeur Sanders has been rumored that they really like each other. I think they try to position themselves in the draft to get Shedeur somehow. That's just what I see happening because I think there's a kind of connections there. I think Shedeur in Vegas obviously would sell because it's Vegas, and Shedeur's a big name because of who his dad is, and he's a Sanders. So that's where I could see that going as a possibility. I got the Broncos winning 5 games. I could have went lower. I gave them 5 games just because sometimes Denver always seems to win like weird games here and there at home because it's a tough place to play because of the altitude and stuff. And I think maybe when Bo Nix towards the end of the year maybe finds a little confidence, they win some doozies against some other bad teams. So I got 5-12 for the Broncos, but like you said, we got to see how Bo Nix looks, and they got a lot of holes to fill on that roster, a lot of holes. So, and we'll see how Sean Payton looks this year as well without Russell Wilson now. The AFC South, Mike, the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I'll go through this one relatively quick. So, I got them at floor is 5, ceiling 7. Reason being, it really comes down to first-year coach and what do they have at Will Levis. I like their receivers. I like their running game. I like everything they've added in free agency. I like that they're rebuilding their O-line through the draft. Defensively, they lost some pieces. I don't know how quick it'll work. They're a little bit of a question mark, but I could see it going pretty well. They might be a surprise. They could pull out 9. Indianapolis is actually my pick to win the division. I'm pretty high on Shane Steichen's offense. I really like their draft. They were able to snag Adonai Mitchell, who I was actually decently high on. They are getting Anthony Richardson back. If he can stay healthy in Shane Steichen's scheme, this could be a really, really scary team. And they could definitely win.
You think they'll win the division?
They're my division pick. They really are.
Wow.
The Jags, weird team. I liked their addition of Eric Armstead. I liked the pickup of the other LSU receiver. For some reason, his name is escaping me. Brian Williams, is it? Brian
Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. Thank you. I like that pickup. I think that's a good replacement for Calvin Ridley. I'm not the biggest believer in Trevor Lawrence. I haven't seen it. I just haven't. And defensively, I just don't know what you're going to get out of him. Houston, I could see them also winning the division, but I have their floor that way because they're eerily similar. I think they're maybe trying to push their window open a little too early. It's kind of reminiscent of the 2019 Browns. I could see CJ having a little bit of a sophomore slump and it just not working as quickly as they want it to. That's just my biggest gripe with them. I like the coach. I like the quarterback. I like their weapons. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think it just might be a little too early for them.
Yeah, I could see that. I still got the winning division. I got the Texans winning division 11-6. Now, I had this when I went through the Texans and the Jaguars schedules, I had it neck and neck. I had them both at 10-6 going to the last game of the year. But the Texans had the Titans, and I think the Jaguars had a much tougher game. So I gave the nod to the Texans to win the division barely. Just because, obviously Stroud's been phenomenal. Stroud just as good as a rookie season we've ever seen. But I agree with you. My concern with the Texans is, they brought in great players defensively. They had, Tank Dell's back healthy. John Mechie will be healthy. I like John Mechie. They got some other great pieces on the offense. Brought in Joe Mixon. I just don't know if Stephon Diggs was the right ingredient to throw into that mix with a young team. Like you said, it's very similar to when Odell got traded to Cleveland. Here, we all thought it was going to be really good. But it went south. It didn't work out. And so I think they're much more stable than we were at that time with coaching and front office and everything. We were not a very stable franchise at that time. And that's why it didn't work. And they've obviously, beat our ass in the playoffs and got a win and stuff. They're coming off a high. And Stroud looked much better than Baker did his rookie year. Not that Baker was bad his rookie year, but Stroud was on a different level. And so it could go. I don't know Stephon Diggs in a locker room. There's always questions about him in a locker room. I just don't know if that's the right fit. We'll see. But I still got to win the division 11-6. We'll see how it goes. How does Stroud look the second year? I love CJ Stroud. I think he's coming off a great year. Obviously, I think some of the stuff this offseason is somewhat similar to what Baker did his offseason, coming out of his rookie year with some of the rumors, people he's been with, and the people he's hanging out with. I love CJ when he stands up for his faith. I'll always defend him on that. He's a Buckeye, but I think CJ, as long as he keeps his head level, doesn't allow himself to get too into, being a superstar quarterback in the NFL and focus on what got him there, he can always be great. But again, you keep leaning in certain things, and Stephon Diggs, you can start going down that route the Browns team went down in 2019. Just saying. The Jaguars, I know you don't like Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence will be fine. I think he'll bounce back this year. I think last year was just a bad year with just the staff and some of the stuff they had going on. I think he'll be back fine, healthy. I think Trevor, don't forget he made it to the playoffs a couple years ago. I think he won a playoff game. And you look at what they added to him, and they got him and Travis Etienne in the backfield, where they brought in Gabe Davis. They drafted Brian Thomas Jr. They got Christian Kirk. So they're pretty good there at weapons-wise. And then defensively as well, they brought in Arik Armstead from the Niners, who's a little older, but I like him a lot as just a veteran. Jordan Jefferson, Mason Smith, both guys from LSU. They got some guys there on defense. I think that could be some good players. Devin Lloyd. Look at the roster here. Josh Proctor from Ohio State. I see him on there. Tyson Campbell, who they just paid, solid player. But I like this team a lot. I think the division and their schedule, I think that's why I said them and the Texans go neck and neck. But I think the Texans have the easier game. I think they get the nod. But I like the Jaguars. I think they bounce back up a really good year. I think they start heading in the right direction. The Colts at 9-8, I agree with you. I like their roster. I like where they're heading. looking back at this now, though, I'll keep him at 9-8. But I Anthony Richardson coming off that injury, though, I don't know. 9 wins might be a lot. But if Shane Steichen can keep the positive momentum that he's had going, and the great offense he's had going there, obviously got Jonathan Taylor running behind Quentin Nelson. They got some good players defensively. On offense, they've done a nice job drafting receivers. The receiver you like, rookie, what's his name?
Saturday Mitchell.
Oh, the other one they drafted the year before from UNC.
Oh, Josh Downs.
Yeah, Josh Downs. If they can get Anthony Richardson playing solid, good enough, I think they can win 9 games because that division is so weak. And like some of these teams in this division, some of their games they play are kind of doozies. So I'll keep it 9-8. Maybe playoff team, maybe not. But I think as long as Anthony looks good and the young pieces keep playing well, I think they're heading in the right direction. Titans, I got at 5-12. They still got some good players left. But I think you're looking at a situation where they get to midseason. D-Hop probably gets moved maybe to Cleveland or something like that, or he gets out of there. They go younger. Will Levis, we'll see what it looks like in year 2. New coach. 5-12, I think, is nice. I mean, they can go a little lower even as well. I think they're in a rebuild, losing Vrabel and just kind of where they are now. So that's what I got for the South. Moving on, though, Mike, to the grand finale. The AFC North.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. All right, we'll start with Pukesburg. All right. Steelers fans, I like your coach. I like your defense. Your offense is sus. Extremely suspect. You got 2 one-year deal guys. You traded away your best receiver. I know a lot of people would argue that that's George Pickens. George Pickens hasn't even had a 1,200-yard season, hasn't had a 1,000-yard season in my knowledge. I think he got close last year. Deontay Johnson was their best offensive weapon. They traded him for a pack of smokes and haven't replaced him. And your new OC is Arthur Smith. I know they complained about their OC before. I think I don't see how this is going to be much better. They haven't drafted particularly well recently. I do like that they're rebuilding their O-line because that was a really big need. I could see them finally falling off and going under 500. But I have their ceiling at 9 just because it's Mike Tomlin. Yeah, I could see it still working out that way.
All right.
And then
Baltimore Ravens.
They've lost a lot. They've lost 3 out of 5 offensive line starters. They've lost 2 of their starting receivers. They've lost both of their running backs from last year and their defensive coordinator that got them very, very far, as well as losing Patrick Queen. They've lost a lot. I could see this being a small down year for the Ravens, which I think Lamar can still will them to 7+ wins. But this could also be a thing where like the Ravens just figure it out. The Ravens really never have that guy besides maybe Mark Andrews a couple year on the offensive side of the ball, besides Lamar, that really shines. I could see Lamar willing them to a really, really good record, but I could also see this being a very kind of like downturn year for the Ravens.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bungles. So they're in a weird spot. They lost DJ Reader, their best defensive player overall. They lose, at least I assume they're losing Trey Hendrickson, who said he'll retire if he doesn't get a new contract. I don't know if T. Higgins is going to play. I still think Joe Burrow is an excellent quarterback, but they keep getting depleted. They've lost Tyler Boyd. They haven't been able to figure out the O-line. They drafted Amarius Mims. Maybe that fixes it. Maybe it doesn't. But it's just a weird situation in Cincinnati. I think they're getting worse when the rest of the AFC is getting better. And this, again, I think could be a downturn thing. But again, their ceiling's high because of their quarterback.
The Cleveland Browns, Mike. Our
Browns. So I have our ceiling very high. I know you're going to call me a homer, people at home. But top to bottom, this is the best roster the Cleveland Browns have ever had. And we won 11 games last year with having 30% of said roster on injured reserve. We're the only team since the 70s to do that. If we are healthy, we could make a run for the 1 seed. I really do believe that. I think it's between us, the Jets, Kansas City. I think are realistic 1 seed teams. And the reason I believe that is defensively, we've only added pieces. It's the same scheme, and you really didn't lose anybody of note. And when I say that, I mean that in no disrespect to Sione Takitaki or Anthony Walker Jr., who I think are excellent players, but we did replace them with Jordan Hicks, who I do think is an upgrade on the field over Anthony Walker at Mike linebacker, and Devin Bush, who I think can do that same position that Sione did. Obviously, you add Jerry Jeudy to the mix on the offensive side of the ball. You add some new play schemes with Ken Dorsey. I think that this could be the year, and with every other team in the division, only losing pieces, not adding. Every other team in the division has lost something big, including like coordinators, players, everything. This is the year where I think the dominoes have fallen in the right spot, that if we're healthy, we can make a run.
All right. So I got the Browns winning the division. I got them at 11-6. I originally had them at 12 wins, but I dropped them down a game. I did a live the other day when Kevin Stefanski announced his keeping the play calling. I've thought about it again for a couple days. Initially, when I gave my reaction, Mike, I don't know if you saw it. Initially, when I gave my reaction, though, I was kind of on the borderline about it because I'm like, you brought in Ken Dorsey to call his scheme, his plays, and you're going to call his plays in a scheme you've never called before. I have questions about that. That's my only concern with this team is the play calling and the processing and stuff. I mean, I'm not saying Kevin doesn't know what he's doing. I think Kevin's done a phenomenal job. But Kevin's always called the same scheme his whole career. All the way back to Minnesota. He brought it to Cleveland. Now they're running a lot of different stuff. New plays, different scheme. It's Ken Dorsey's offense, basically. That's why you brought him in here. Because if you would have kept it the same way, you would have just kept Alex Van Pelt here. It was just fine holding the play sheet on the sideline, not calling the plays. So he's going to keep calling the plays. I'm assuming he's put in a lot of hours this offseason studying that playbook and understanding that offense with Ken Dorsey and knowing what to call and when to call. Because this is some newer stuff he hasn't called yet. He's never had a quarterback with Deshaun's skill set. He's always had guys like Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco. Those fit that old scheme they were running, the more the West Coast Kubiak offense. This scheme now is a little different. A little more spread, a little more open, a little more up-tempo, a little more RPO. Not up-tempo, but a little more faster pace offense around Deshaun's skill set. So I'm really curious to see how that works. But like you said, I mean, everywhere else, though, I mean, actually they got better defensively. Drafting Mike Hall Jr., the 3-tech they need. And anytime you get a 3-tech like that who can get off the ball like Mike, the skill set he has in breaking double teams, clogging the running lanes, getting to the quarterback, his speed, is just athleticism for a 3-tech's unbelievable. I think they upgraded defensively. I think they upgraded offensively as well. Jerry Jeudy's an upgrade at receiver from what they had. They still got Amari. They still got Elijah. I want to see Elijah do a little bit more this year. I think Jamari Thrash, the rookie, can maybe make some noise in that new scheme just because of his skill set. I want to see Tillman look solid. But obviously you got David Njoku, who's a great tight end. I think he's really evolved his game in the last 2 years. Nick Chubb, I think, looks really good in camp. I think Nick Chubb will be just fine. I believe in Nick Chubb. And they still got Jerome Ford, who is coming in the second year.
And Deontay Foreman.
Jerome Ford. I like the rotation at running back. They brought in Naheem Hines as well, who can be a little pass catcher. So they got some depth there running back. The offensive line's still really good. You got DeJuan Jones. You got Antonio, maybe his last year, but you got Zach Zinner coming in from behind, who I like. Ethan Pochich. You got Wyatt Teller. I think it's a big year. The biggest year for anybody on this roster, besides Deshaun Watson, is Jed Wills. This is Jed Wills' contract year. I think Jed Wills in this new scheme, it's similar to a lot of stuff they ran at Alabama in terms of more pass pro and stuff like that. I think Jed can get back to being just fine. Maybe having a new face. Not that Bill Callahan's a phenomenal, maybe the best O-line coach, but Andy Dickerson came under from Bill Callahan, actually, believe it or not. And I think just maybe sometimes having a new scheme, maybe a different face telling you, coaching you every day, maybe that'll get Jed to play more consistently. I think it's just consistency with him. I think the ankle injury second year kind of hindered him a little bit mentally and just hard to and yet all the quarterback changes. When you're blocking for different quarterbacks, and I noticed as a former lineman and a center, when you block for different quarterbacks, it can be very challenging for your O-line. But this O-line has really held up well. And I think it's a testament how skilled they are and how good they are. and just how dominant they are at times, and they're really, you know, winning the line of scrimmage. But that's the only thing with the Browns, Mike. It's just the play calling and just how that's going to work with the new scheme and Kevin calling the play still. That's my only concern. I have the Ravens at 10-7. I think they got worse on the perimeter. I don't know who the number one receiver is. Well, they got, what's his name? Zay Flowers. But Zay Flowers, I mean, he's a good player, but that last playoff game was not a good outing for him.
And he's a slot guy. He's too small to be a...
Yeah, he's a slot receiver. They lost guys on the offensive line. They lost guys defensively. It's the Ravens. I get it. They're always solid. I know they got Derrick Henry. He's a little older now. I think 10-7 to me seems reasonable for them, especially how tough these schedules are for these teams. I think 10-7 is reasonable. The Bengals and the Steelers. The reason why I have the Steelers at 8-9 below the Bengals is because I don't know who their quarterback really is. I mean, Fields has looked good.
I don't think they know who their quarterback is.
I think Fields has looked really good in camp. He's thrown some nice deep balls. He looks like the Fields that I knew. I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson guy. He's a great talent. I know his career, but I don't like him in the locker room. Some of the guys don't say I don't know. We don't know. I'm not saying he's a bad person or anything, but I just don't know this situation. Yeah, kind of quirky. And just this situation with Fields and Wilson, I just don't think Wilson really takes off there. I just don't see. I think Fields is hungrier. Fields needs this. I think Fields is embracing it more. Fields finally has a fresh opportunity and a pretty stable, obviously stable organization. I think Fields eventually takes over the reins in the middle of the season, and he becomes the guy, and they eventually go with him. And I think he will get a second contract, kind of like Baker did, because I believe in Justin Fields. And I just don't. I don't think Russell Wilson. If they stick with Russell Wilson, I don't think it goes well. And all the fans in Pittsburgh, a lot of them are actually kind of Ohio State fans, believe it or not. One of them being our boy Daylor, are going to start calling for Justin Fields. And so I'm going to say 8-9. I know Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, but I think Mike Tomlin's kind of year to year in Pittsburgh. I think if a job opens up out west, that's always rumored that he may take off out west to a West Coast team to get just maybe a fresh challenge, fresh start. Because they haven't been able to solve that quarterback. But if Fields looks good, and I think 8-9, I know it's not the winning season they're used to, but I think it's still okay for them. As long as they get the quarterback down going into the next offseason, they can regroup and get back to being a playoff team like they usually are. They're, it's a great franchise, obviously. They've always been consistent. The Bengals, I have at 9-8. The only reason why I have the Bengals at 9-8, Mike, because I feel like they have the weaker of the schedules of the 4 teams. I think they have the easier home games. Stuff like that. But I do not like Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow, the player. I don't like what I've seen from Joe Burrow off the field.
Oh, Cody Rhodes?
Cody Rhodes, the fashion show with the little...
no disrespect to Cody Rhodes.
He's at the fashion show wearing that one thing. It looked like he worked at Hartville Kitchen with the... with the little kitchen. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the vibes in Cincinnati. I think their coach is okay. I don't think he's great. Your receivers sitting out wanting to trade. They're padlocking the vending machines. They're so cheap. Trey Hendrickson's talking, I'm gonna retire. Joe Mixon's not there anymore, who was their bell cow back.
Yep.
The O-line is still suspect. I mean, they lost their DJ Reader. And they're in the AFC North, by the way. They lost him. I can see the Steelers going above them. I could have easily flipped those two, Mike. The reason why, because I respect Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I think I only gave them the nod because they have the easier schedule. And I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do at quarterback. If Pittsburgh goes with Justin Fields, though, or one of them, if he takes over, let's say my scenario I played out, and they start rolling at the end of the season, they can easily go 9-8. And I can see Cincinnati going 7 wins. It can go really good, which I think is 9-8. I think they're a 9-8 roster. I just don't think Joe Burrow can overcome a lot of the deficiencies they have.
Yeah,
as great as he is, it could also go really bad. And so I got him there at 9-8. Them in Pittsburgh, they can easily flip back and forth. But I think us in Baltimore, I think have more stability roster wise. You know what we are. They know what they are, and I think it's us two, like it always is for the last couple of years, battling for the North. Well, I don't say always, but at least last year and some other years, it's us two going back and forth, battling for the North. But I got the Browns winning the North, finally winning the North. And I think Deshaun bounces back. As long as everything goes good offensively and they have that down, like, well, I hope Kevin's
And
right.
health-wise.
And health-wise, I think they'll be just fine. So there you have it. That's our predictions for each division. Feel pretty good about it, Mike. You did a phenomenal job, like always. Shout out to Mike. We gotta give you a round
As
of
did
applause.
you.
Shout
Oh,
out to
you're
Mike.
so sweet.
Well, Mike, we gotta go to Michael K. Cabot real quick, though. You know, you've been keeping an eye on training camp.
Have.
You want to give a little report, kind of. What's your thoughts on that too? I'm curious. I know you like Kevin Stefanski, and
I
I like
do.
him, but what's your thoughts? My only concern is this here, like what I said the other day, is you're running a lot of Ken Dorsey stuff now. That's why you hired Ken, which I agree with it. I think Kevin did a great job. I like Tommy Reese. I like Andy Dickerson, Deuce Staley.
Yeah.
I love the staff he had. I like Chad O'Shea. I'm glad he kept him. I think O'Shea's actually pretty good. And
I like Chad O'Shea a lot, yeah.
I think O'Shea's actually a really good receiver coach. This comes from New England, that background, the pedigree. I'm just curious to him calling plays in a different scheme he's never called in. I'm just curious,
Yeah.
Because this is Ken Dorsey's thing. I don't want to be in a scenario, like I said the other day, where we're in the middle of a game and Ken's telling him what to call because it's Ken's scheme.
Yeah.
And maybe Kevin's asking. I think you want to be more direct and more efficient. But I'm just curious.
And we talked about this a little bit before. I said I thought that Kevin Stefanski was going to retain play calling. I don't think the intent when they hired Ken Dorsey was to have him take over play calling abilities. I think the intent is what exactly has happened is to get a different offensive philosophy to challenge Kevin. Because here's the thing, Ken Dorsey is very good at coordinating pass game. Run game wise, his run game style is awful. My buddy Dan Mitchell will be the first to tell you, who covered the Bills. His run game was really lacking, and it was when Ken Dorsey was finally fired from Buffalo is when James Cook kind of like took up the reins and became one of the premier backs of the league. So I think having him as a counteractive kind of yin to Stefanski's yang, if you will, having a completely different offensive philosophy when it comes to the pass game. And Kevin said it himself that it's collaborative. Kevin is not like a very stingy play caller. He'll let, like, if the players are seeing something that he's not mid game, or if the assistant coaches are seeing something that he's not mid game, he'll call something like that. Like there was that instance where Deshaun and Amari kept noticing a certain coverage that the Cardinals were giving Amari, and he's like, Amari's like, well, if I
quarterback.
Yeah, he trusts his quarterback and he trusts his assistant coaches. And he said that even at times when Callahan was here, he would, Callahan would be seeing a certain thing during the run, and he's like, hey, call this. He's not a stingy play caller. And I think when it comes down to Kevin and how he sees it, it's very much a collaborative offense. And I think I'm going to quote myself when I say, when they hired Ken, I really don't think it matters whose hand is holding the play sheet. I really never think that it was really going to matter. And I think I was kind of proven right a little bit in that it is still going to be a collaborative thing. Is Kevin a perfect play caller? No one is. But I think he is one of the best in the NFL. And I think we're going to see it only improve with Ken's updated pass game. But that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Is it safe to say that Ken Dorsey is really just brought in as a passing coordinator?
Because I would say that's
Kevin Stefanski's running scheme has always been really good. It's been great.
Oh, it's one of the best.
It was top of the league a couple of years. I think you can't deny his running scheme, especially with Nick Chubb. I think back. If Nick's 80% of what he was, it's still phenomenal. Nick.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that's it, and maybe that's why he's saying, you know what, I'm gonna keep the play calling sheet because I've done. I mean, I've had some of my concerns with it. I guess it's the new norm for coaches to call plays, head coaches to call plays now. I think we haven't seen a high success rate of it in the last 25 years, but it's more the new trend now. So I think eventually we'll see more guys winning Super Bowls doing it. But but what makes a great head coach, I'll hand it off to you, is this is where I have confidence in Kevin, is where people you can't deny him, is number one, he holds the team together. Last year proved that. If any team should have fell apart and quit last year and won below 500, I mean, plus it was the Browns.
Oh yeah, and you wouldn't have blamed him.
With all the injuries and the stuff they had.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have blamed them. And so, but I think what makes a great coach is the staff they put around him. And he's done a phenomenal job. Excuse me, bringing in Tommy. I like Tommy Rees because he's a former offensive coordinator at Alabama and has a pretty good background. Andy Dickerson was one of the higher. He's young, but he's actually one of the better offensive line coaches in the league in the last couple of years, and he has a really good background from the Rams to the Patriots. Was with Bill Callahan, was with obviously Pete Carroll, and then
Pick
obviously
Seattle's
Chadwick Shea,
O-line.
Deuce Staley, a really good running back coach, former player. I think will do well. Obviously, just as a former player, knowing the game. So he's done a nice job with the staff he's put around him. But the more you say it, it makes more sense now. It seems like more of maybe just they didn't say that. It's more of just maybe Ken Dorsey was just brought in as a passing game specialist. Really, that's what he is. They gave him the label, but he's really, can you just upgrade our passing game?
Yeah, it's a lot of that, and also I would say more of a specialized quarterbacks coach, because no disrespect to AVP, we all love AVP in Cleveland, but that wasn't really his room, even though he was given the title of quarterbacks coach. And Ken Dorsey,
and Ken Dorsey's a former player,
right?
Played in the NFL, played at college at a high level,
right.
And had Cam Newton had his best MVP season. It was similar to Sean's skill set a little bit. And
Yeah.
Cam Newton
he's worked with
Ken Dorsey.
Right. He's worked with Cam Newton. He's worked with Josh Allen, obviously. He's worked with these.
Cam had his MVP season with Ken.
Yeah. So
he's more cerebral quarterbacks.
Exactly. I've been told from someone who is close to the situation that, it really seems like that's Ken's room. They really want Ken plugged in the quarterback room, sitting down with Deshaun, talking through what he's seeing, like on the sidelines, all that good stuff. And again, this isn't to say Alex Van Pelt wasn't doing that, just not maybe the kind of philosophy that Alex Van Pelt was used to, or what Deshaun likes to do. So I would say it's very fair to say passing game coordinator / quarterbacks coach, with the title of offensive coordinator. But yeah, I think it's going to turn out just fine. I think it's going to be a very good, surprising year for all.
Well, what's been your takes, real quick, for Guy, or we'll wrap this up? Anything from camp so far last couple of days this week? I mean, anything stood out to you? Or
Michael Hall's very fast for such a big guy.
Dude, that first step for a 3-tech by him is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's extremely twitchy. I think there's some smaller things. Myles Garrett's kind of taken on a leadership role more so, which is really good to see. I think going back to the Greenbrier in West Virginia is going to be really good for the team. Not too much out of the rookies other than Michael Hall. Deshaun's looked phenomenal. He's been just slinging that thing everywhere. I really like what the offensive looks we're giving people. The offense looks to be. Sorry, my phone was cutting out a little bit.
Well, I saw Deshaun the other day had the no-look pass to Njoku in the end zone. He looked pretty good in the red zone in some of the highlights I've seen.
Yeah, no, he looks excellent, and I really, really think this year is going to be a special year for Deshaun with all the motion they're running. It's just going to be exciting to see. Hopefully, we'll know more. Thursday looks like it's going to be the big day of 11 on 11s in pads. So stay tuned for Thursday.
Well, yeah, Nick Chubb's looked good as well. I think Nick's really surprised a lot of people. Squatted 600 pounds again a couple weeks ago. He looked good in camp. Any shot? Do you think there's a chance Nick plays week 1 still or no?
That's a good question. And the answer to that question is there is a chance with the way his contract is and the way he's looking. But at the same token, I don't know if the Browns will let him. The Browns are very careful with injuries, especially with the players important to the team as Nick. I could see him being physically ready, but the team not feeling good about it and giving him another week. But I think there's a good chance. Like, I think it's going to be a lot earlier than what some national pundits or even local pundits are thinking. Just based off of how he's looked. I really do think that it's going to be a lot earlier than what people initially thought.
All right. Well, loaded show today. Mike, I appreciate it. Like always, salute to you, Mike.
Salute to you, my friend.
Mike, not to like, subscribe, and share before we get up out of here.
Absolutely. You got to like, you got to subscribe and share because we love making this content. We want to continue to make this content. And in order to do so, we need you to watch it. And the best way to watch it is if you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and so you are informed on when we make new videos, when we are on, so you can stay up to date on all NFL news and mental health awareness and all of that good stuff. And if you like the show and you think that other people will like it as well, please just hit the share button, share it on your Twitter or your X. Yeah, just share it. Just share it on your X, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your TikToks, all that good stuffs. But yeah, we would appreciate it.
All right, love all you guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Like Mike said, we'll see you guys next one. Mike, are you saluting?
I am saluting. You can't see though.
All right, I'm saluting. All right, we can't see. He's saluting. I'm saluting. I'm out.
Later.
Go.